Hi and welcome to the Will Beyond Belief. My name is Paul Marco, and today I want to talk about the great American bathroom controversy. For centuries, men have used men's rooms and women have used women's rooms without any problem. But today, because of the Tavistock, Satanist, Frankfurt School agenda, this is no longer the case. Anybody can use anybody's bathroom. This makes a ripe situation for predators and people that want to take advantage of this situation. Now, everyone says that this is because we want to not offend the transgender community. Now, the transgender community is about 3 in 1,000. It's a small community, but it's an important community. Everybody now is concerned that they might be offended, and I say might because my experience with the transgender community is the last thing they want to do is be thrust in the spotlight. And they've been using men's rooms and women's rooms individually appropriate to them ever since there's been transgenders. They decide what's appropriate, and we haven't had a lot of big problems with this. Actually, we've had no problems with this. Now, this greatly misunderstood target population, the transgenders, have been thrust into the spotlight. And my experience with transgenders is that that's the last place they want to be. They want to be normal. But they're being used as a political football by the Satanists, the Satanist overlords that can seem to control our environment. And the idea isn't to keep people from being offended. The idea is to belittle and confuse God's divine creation, the human being. What I want to do today is look into the dilemma that these transgender people are involved in and get a little bit more understanding for what they're going through. The hell with the political correct stuff. The hell with the Satanist agenda. These people need attention. They need care, and they need understanding. And that's what we're going to try to do during this podcast. Well, it's obvious to those that do research and have eyes to see and ears to hear that Western civilization is being destroyed from within. It's a Satanist plot, but it's being orchestrated by their minions like Tavistock Institute, including many of its offshoots like the powerful Rand Corporation or the Heritage Foundation. The Frankfurt School relocated to New York City and has destroyed America with a method called critical theory. And by this time, they've pretty much disassembled Western society. Well, actually, critical theory is actually no theory at all. It simply says to criticize everything until it collapses into chaos. Criticize Western values, Western institutions, patriots, nation states, everything on which civilization was built. And they're pretty far along in this agenda. If you look at what was good to a human in the 1950s, like youthful purity, morality based on Judeo-Christian values, the dignity of women and men, the virtue of right action, a solid currency, social mobility, freedom of speech, or even the importance of the family. Sure, times weren't perfect back then, but between the baby boomers and now the millenniums, we were all complicit in the dark side's plan to set us adrift on a sea without a sense of morality, or now without a sense of reality. They're deceivers and count on lies. To them, truth does not exist. Quite frankly, I see no way of returning or salvaging anything unless we all wake up, and we all wake up now. Today we're going to look at a kind of problem, reaction, solution, but this time without a problem. Just a staged reaction and an obvious solution that was implemented long before the staged problem. I'm talking about the great American bathroom controversy. Ta-da! Now, just a quick disclaimer. Because I've always lived outside the box and explored alternative lifestyles, modes of expression, and alternative beliefs, and if you don't believe that, just check out the other videos on this YouTube channel. Because of that, homosexuals, both men and women, have been a big, important part of my life. Transsexuals and transgender individuals have been in my life also. All of these individuals that I know in this transgender situation have engendered my love and respect. And I will turn attention to these unique individuals later on in this podcast. The reason that I'm making this podcast is because I hate to see these individuals victimized. First, let's look at the distraction.
Their concert scheduled for tomorrow in Greensboro, North Carolina, to protest the state's new law blocking anti-discrimination measures for gay, lesbian, and transgender people. Springsteen said the law overturns progress in recognizing the human rights of all people.
The Boss bowing out. Just days before a big concert in North Carolina, Bruce Springsteen's surprise move is a protest against the state's so-called bathroom law.
Yeah, critics say this law discriminates against gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgendered people. And Springsteen is not the only big name speaking out.
That means thousands of Carolina fans won't get to see the 66-year-old legend. The Boss taking a stand against a controversial new law in North Carolina, canceling his show in Greensboro only 48 hours before taking the stage. The bill, HB2, or the bathroom law, has come under heavy fire from critics in recent days. In it, individuals are required to use bathrooms that correspond to the gender on their birth certificate. The Boss joins the ranks of companies like Apple, Google, Yahoo, and PayPal that have pushed back against the new legislation, calling for its repeal. Even Charles Barkley voicing his distaste of this new law.
I think the NBA should move the All-Star game from there next year.
And other celebrities praising the Boss for canceling his show. Melissa McCarthy tweeting, "One more incredible reason to love Bruce Springsteen. Your integrity is inspiring."
That's not going to hurt enough. We need to hurt them economically. It's the only thing they understand. You got to hurt people economically to have them do the right thing morally. That's the essence of a boycott. And it's a shame when it comes to that. But this sort of thing is spreading like an evil virus around the country, and we felt we better stop this. We're going to try and stop this right now, early, and hopefully, other people will rise up and join us, and we're joining other people who have already begun this boycott.
Well, what an outrage. Men are required to use men's rooms and women are required to use women's rooms. Pretty tough call. Well, the Steven Van Zandt character calls it an evil virus, and I guess he would know what an evil virus is, because if you've studied the music industry at all, you know that you can't get into it, let alone become famous or make it to the top without selling your soul, without having a deal with the authorities there to make yourself rich and famous, saying whatever they want you to say. These people don't have opinions of their own. They can't have opinions of their own. If they had an opinion of their own, they'd be taken off of the public stage. They have to voice the opinion that the Satanist control system gives them. If you've done your research, you know that Tavistock Institute has controlled the dark side, and the dark side has controlled music ever since the beginning of the 20th century, and certainly since World War II. It's shaped our morals, it's shaped our values, and nobody gets into that industry unless they sell their soul, unless they say they're going to do what they're told to do whenever they're told to do it. You don't have to do too much research or go too deeply into this to know that all these people that you see on public media aren't there unless they can be trusted to say the right thing. They've all been to the crossroads. They've sold their souls for rock and roll. In a logical and moral society, this statement by, Steven Van Zandt, would have a laugh track. It's so ridiculous. A person of this stature who has gone through this and now is calling it a moral outrage, an evil virus? Oh my God. How can you twist? How can you invert more than that? And then of course, you have businesses that are controlled by the Luciferian matrix speaking out of this. They're outraged at this bathroom law that requires men to use men's rooms and women to use women's rooms. So still in North Carolina, men don't have to accompany their wives and daughters to the ladies' room to protect them from sexual predators. Now, there's also businesses involved, as you saw. PayPal, one of my favorite money changers in the temple, pulled the plug on a location in North Carolina that would have employed 400 people. Luckily, those people don't have to serve that evil master now. Oh, so who else? What other companies are standing up because they don't like men using men's room and women using women's room? Coca-Cola, for example, Starbucks, Microsoft, Google, and many others. But if you check it out, these businesses do business freely in Saudi Arabia and in Egypt, where gay men are routinely put to death, usually by beheading, but also sometimes by stoning. Now, here's an interesting article I just found. Saudi Arabia pushed for gays to be executed because of social media is making too many homosexuals. Now, what's causing homosexuals in the Middle East? We can discuss that later. But this country, where I would imagine Coca-Cola, Starbucks, Microsoft, Google, PayPal all work freely, aren't saying anything about the execution of gays because there's just too many of them. I just wanted to bring your attention quickly to this. These are 10 nations where the penalty for gay sex is death, and they're not kidding on this one. It goes down to say how many in which countries are executed. It says right here, Saudi Arabia, number 3 among the world's most avid executioners, with 90 plus in 2014. Iran is number 2 for frequency of executions, right behind Chyna. And so here in the United States, we're concerned about women using men's rooms and men's using women's rooms. And don't you wonder who they're trying to please with this legislation? All right, I feel like we need a quick little history lesson. In the last half of the 20th century, it was totally a war against morality. Morally raised boomers, because of the seduction of the Frankfurt School in Tavistock, found themselves screwing in the mud at Woodstock in 1969, while the musicians on stage, like Santana and others, readily admitted to being possessed while playing at that concert, and many others. Influences in the 60s, like the Kinsey Report, a study of perversion, the movie programmed admiration for the moralist James Bond, and social psychologists like Hugh Hefner ripped us from our foundations of right and wrong and sent us floating in a sea of moral relativity, which, by the way, this moral relativity is the second tenet of Satanism. Remember Brother Aleister Crowley saying, "Do what thou wilt"? That's called moral relativity, and that's what these evil viruses are working under. Now, the New Age situational ethics that emerged in the late 20th century, embraced by many baby boomers, has that same moral relativity that reflects the Satanist dream for America. Yeah, it's all a matter of perceptions. What's right for me might not be right for you, and what's right in certain situations may not be. No, there is a morality, and there is a right and wrong, and if you don't know that, you need to do more research. So the Satanist pedophiles have taken it one step further with the millennium generation, which has been stripped of their ability to see reality. So in the baby boomers, they stripped us from morality, and we're adrift on the sea of moral relativity. Now what they're taking away from the millenniums, the poor millenniums, is a war against reality, a war against the truth, a saying that the same as they said to us that moral is relative, they're saying truth and reality is relative. And you know, without an objective truth, no one can think or reason. Check this out.
There's been a lot of talk about identity lately, but how far does it go? And is it possible to be wrong? We went to the University of Washington to find out. Are you aware of the debate happening in Washington State around the ability to access bathrooms, locker rooms, spas based on gender identity and gender expression?
I think people should be able to have access to the facility.
I think bathrooms could and potentially should be gender neutral because there doesn't need to be a classification for differences.
I think people definitely should have the ability to go into whichever locker room they want.
I feel like at least public universities should do their best to accommodate for those who do not have a specific gender identity.
You know, whether you identify as male or female and whether your sex at birth is matching to that, you should be able to utilize the resources.
So if I told you that I was a woman, what would your response be?
Good for you. Okay, like, yeah.
Nice to meet you.
I'd be like, what? Really?
I don't have a problem with it.
I'd ask you how you came to that conclusion.
If I told you that I was Chinese, what would your response be?
I mean, I might be a little surprised, but I'd say, good for you. Like, yeah, be who you are. I would maybe think you had some Chinese ancestor.
I would ask you how you similarly came to that conclusion and why you came to that conclusion.
I would have a lot of questions, just because on the outside I would assume that you're a white man.
Thing.
If I told you I'm 6 feet 5 inches, what would you say?
That I would question.
Why?
Because you're not. No, I don't think you're 6'5". If you truly believed you're 6'5", I don't think it's harmful. I think it's fine if you believe that. It doesn't matter to me if you think you're taller than you are.
So you'd be willing to tell me I'm wrong?
I wouldn't tell you you're wrong.
No, but I say that I don't think that you are.
I feel like that's not my place as like another human to say someone is wrong or to draw lines or boundaries.
No, I mean, I wouldn't just go like, oh, you're wrong, like that's wrong to believe in it. Because I mean, again, it doesn't really bother me what you want to think about your height or anything.
So I can be a Chinese woman.
You sure.
But I can't be a 6'5" Chinese woman.
Yes.
If you thoroughly debated me or explained why you felt that you were 6'5", I feel like I would be very open to saying that you were 6'5", or Chinese, or a woman.
It shouldn't be hard to tell a 5'9" white guy that he's not a 6'5" Chinese woman. But clearly it is. Why? What does that say about our culture? And what does that say about our ability to answer the questions that actually are difficult?
Wow, I was amazed at this video. It just blew my mind. These people are so crippled. Thinking is delineation. There is an objective reality. There is truth. Thinking requires judgment and discernment. These children, spawned by a moralist baby boomer generation that I'm a part of, now are set adrift without a notion of objective reality. Apparent to some who follow science or biology, there are two sexes, men and women. Notice I didn't say male and female. These are sexual designations for animals, and they've been pushed into the vernacular of people by the satanic overlords. Properly and respectively use men and women, boys and girls, not kids. That's another trick. You can change your genitalia, but you can't change your chromosomes. I'm sorry, but it's simply reality. If you believe in a creator God, you know that he created two sexes. And now there is an out-and-out war on everything natural, and these two sexes are a prime target. Why? Because it causes chaos, inability to reason and think. Toxic substances in the food and water supply cause sexual confusion and ambiguity. No one wants this problem. Can you imagine growing up with this incongruence between identity and body? Now look at this YouTube page and watch some of these videos. Look at some of this stuff. My decision to detransition. I made a mistake. why I'm detransitioning. Man regrets sex change, warns Caitlyn Jenner. FTM transgender, why I quit testosterone, and on and on. I regret transitioning. 3 weeks transition. Really, go through, watch some of these videos. If your heart does not go out to these people, then you're simply a psychopath or a narcissist. If you can use these poor individuals for your deluded purposes, you're an animal. This is a problem that society needs to address, not only by purifying water and food and giving pregnant women healthy environments. We need to help people with this condition. And I will talk more about that later in this podcast. Hold on a minute. So who's pushing for this law? Is it men? Well, men might be concerned about the welfare of their wives and daughters in restrooms with other men. I certainly would be. This will necessitate fathers and husbands going to the restrooms with their loved ones to protect them from other men who could be lurking sexual predators. So, no, I don't think that normal heterosexual men are pushing this law. Is it women that are pushing for this law?
What are you doing?
I'm transgender.
What? No, you can't be in here.
This is a girl's bathroom. I identify as a girl.
You are not. Do you hear yourself right now? You are not a woman. You have such a
I am a
deep
girl.
voice.
For transgender, we could say with our regular voice.
What? That doesn't make any sense. You definitely have a penis. You need to get out of here.
I do have a penis, but I identify as a girl, so I'm allowed in
You can't be in
here.
here.
Why not? I'm a girl.
No, you can't be in here.
But I'm a girl.
You can just say you're a girl.
Right,
I
I'm
can just
gonna-
say I'm a guy. Like,
I'll get out. I'll let you be.
Ew, get out. What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be in here.
I'm trans.
You're a guy. Get
Well,
out
I
of here.
don't
Belong here.
But I identify as a girl. Why
Ew,
can't I
this
be in
is
here?
disgusting. Get the out of here. You need to leave.
Jesus. Okay. Okay.
Well, no, I don't think it's women that are pushing for this law. What about gay men and women? Well, I know about this subject. I know a lot of gay folks, and they seem quite content to use the same-sex bathroom since they're attracted to the same-sex gender. Okay? Gay guys can relate to men in men's room. Gay women, I'm sure, don't want to inhabit men's room ever. Why would they? Well, it has to be transgender folks that are pushing for this.
It's not okay with Andrea Zekas either.
I do not belong in a men's restroom. I belong in a women's restroom because I'm a woman.
She says as a transgender woman, she just wants a restroom that's safe and private.
And it would be completely inappropriate for me to use the men's room. And so I see that as someone who just doesn't understand transgender people and their experiences.
She and other advocates say transgender people often face discrimination and battle depression and suicide.
Signs like what we've seen in Kaiser create an even more hostile climate for transgender people who are among the most vulnerable in our communities.
Now, this law is not going to change anything for this woman. She's probably always been able to use these restrooms, and she always will be, because I certainly wouldn't mind her being in a woman's room, and I'm sure other women wouldn't either. But what I want you to do is put yourself in the place of this poor woman. She wants to be normal. Yes, normal. Every transgender person that I've known wants to be normal. They don't want to stand out. Imagine the struggle that these lives must involve. And now they're being used by the Satanist control system to disrupt society that they so desperately want to be a normal part of. Sounds like the ultimate in cruelty to me. The transgender people that I know don't want to stand out. They want to be normal and accepted. And in my experience, they work real hard just to do that. They'd probably like to be unburdened by this nagging feeling that they're in the wrong body. The only section of society that would really benefit from this law would be the sexual perverts and predators spawned by the Satanist elite. They want to go into bathrooms to prey on women. Here's a short clip made by somebody undercover posing as a sexual predator wanting to go into the university's bathrooms and being given total permission to do so under this new law.
We all use the bathrooms for different reasons. I'm not one of the transgender people. I do it for the women.
I like being in the guy's bathroom. There's guys in there. Yeah. I like guys. So it's a turn on? Yeah.
For better or worse, a bit of a fetish?
Are you familiar with Snapchat? You know, I'll like take a snap in the bathroom. My friend's like, oh my God, you're so gross.
And so I can be a little bit bad, and it sort of pushes the envelope.
So, I mean, there has been some Snapchats, but they self-destruct.
Well, they don't really self-destruct.
I hope they self-destruct.
Like, you're taking Snapchats of women, you're alerting me to what we call sexual exploitation. You don't tell me anything more. You don't tell me anything more. When people take, don't say it, just listen.
Okay, so you can see genderless bathrooms. This gives easy access to compromising situations for women. And of course the Jesuits, Zionists, and the Freemason sex cult that finds Judeo-Christian morality an interference to their new one-world Luciferian religion. Keep in mind that the new Messiah, the Maitreya, and what the Christians are going to call the Antichrist, will be bisexual and likely display sexual characteristics of both males and females. This is part of the distraction, the destruction of the divine creation, this abomination of the sexes. And speaking of abominations, then there's Bruce Jenner. Now let's look at Bruce Jenner. This guy plays a very unique role in the Control System Theater. Not that it matters to Bruce, but I will consider calling him Caitlin when he removes his junk. Until then, he's Bruce in my book. By the way, Bruce, posing in Sports Illustrated, will not do it for me. Too much airbrushing and computer manipulation. Now, Bruce is certainly a victim from birth, and now is employed in the world's most dangerous profession, which is stardom. Look at Robin Williams, Prince, Amy Winehouse, David Bowie, Alan Rickman, Michael Jackson, and so on and on and on. Very dangerous profession. Now, he was raised in the Satanist town of Newtown, Connecticut, and he was likely groomed to be an Olympic champion from birth. If, after all this time, you think that the gold medal in the decathlon cannot be arranged, or this young man given sufficient enhancement drugs to outshine the competition, well, you need to do more research and think again. So to make a Superman is nothing for the evil bastards in charge of this plane. Now, to change this Superman into a woman, this is reality bending or war on reality. I have a hunch that the last thing that Bruce wanted to do was to masquerade as a woman. But the die had been cast, and the role had been assigned. This victim, and Bruce is surely a victim, was created to put a happy face on a huge problem that likely about 1 million Americans suffer. This is not fun. This is an affliction that must be worse than any other that I can think of. Remember when you went to school and you felt all that insecurity about yourself? Do the others like me? Do I fit in? Am I pretty enough? Am I tough enough? I'll never get the boyfriend or the girlfriend. Now multiply that by about 1 million, and you get the kind of anxiety that these individuals with real sexual confusion must live through. It is a youth that no one wants. I wasn't strong or athletic in my youth, so I would get a frequent ass kicking through elementary school and junior high. But I suffered nothing compared to what I can imagine these young men and women suffer through. I've heard them say many times that they feel trapped in a body that's not theirs. But the way to fix perceptual difficulty is not to change reality. It's to facilitate the adaptation to reality. I had to adapt to the crowd. Yes, it was much easier for me, no doubt. The reality was not going to change for me. I had to adapt. But many of these feeling that they are in the wrong sex body are not aware of all the options because they live in a society with an agenda. And that agenda is not to make their plight more palatable. It's to use their plight to create more deception and fool the masses. Let's look at pharmaceuticals. The pharmaceutical companies that are so anxious to put shy children on beta blockers and benzos and people with oppositional defiance disorder, yeah, that's people who resist authority, to be rushed to be put on the drug Amplify or Respiridol. With the shy people, the school system would not create a community for the extremely shy people and not allow anyone to come in their area, escort them to the bathroom separately, and make sure that the parents know that there is nothing wrong with their children. We need to change society to accommodate them. No, they put them on beta blockers or benzos. And the ODD children, oppositional defiance disorder, are immediately put on Amplify or Respiridol. There is no attempt to make a separate community of oppositional defiance disorder. No, those children have to learn to deal with a reality and not create a new community for this affliction. Quite frankly, I think the ODD children should be encouraged because they're the only ones that probably have the equipment to stand up to the massive pushdown that we're undergoing right now. But back to the shy and ODD, both of these disorders, which in my day were simply hurdles for the individual to overcome, these afflictions affect double-digit percentages of the school-age population. But with an affliction rate that only hits 0.3% of the population at the very outside, the transgender dilemma is clearly an illness. Why don't the drug companies jump on this opportunity? Surely the drug companies have got something for this difficulty. Well, they do, and it's proven to be effective. But you know that the pharmaceutical industry is also controlled by the dark side, and they would rather see this suffering disrupt the society with outrageous rules and create an unbelievable moral dilemma for these poor, struggling transgender folks. Check this out. Some excellent research done by Black Pigeon Speaks.
The concept of a trans community is the problem here. You can't satisfy a community defined by an identity of mental illness except by indulging it. There can be no trans community any more than there can be a community of anorexics or people that cut themselves or the depressed and manic. You can have a community of the afflicted, of sufferers looking to overcome their illness. But if you indulge a mental illness as an identity, all you're doing is propagating the illness. And being transgender is a mental illness. Dr. Paul McHugh, who is currently Distinguished Service Professor of Psychiatry and former Chief Psychiatrist at Johns Hopkins Hospital, has said that sex changes were biologically impossible and that those doctors who promote sexual reassignment surgery are collaborating with and promoting a mental disorder. Dr. McHugh, who is the author of 6 books and at least 125 peer-reviewed medical articles, made his remarks in an article in the Wall Street Journal titled "Transgender Surgery Isn't the Solution." He explained that transgender surgery is not the solution for people who suffer a disorder of assumption, the notion that their maleness or femaleness is different than what nature assigned to them biologically. While the Obama administration, Hollywood, and major media such as Time magazine promote transgenderism as normal, said Dr. McHugh, these policymakers and media are doing no favors either to the public or the transgendered by treating their confusions as a right in need of defending rather than a mental disorder that deserves understanding, treatment, and prevention. Dr. McHugh also pointed out studies from Vanderbilt University and London's Portman Clinic of children who expressed transgender feelings, but for whom, over time, 70 to 80%, in fact, spontaneously lost those feelings. McHugh's views are backed by studies from across the world. For example, a 2011 study from Sweden, which was a long-term follow-up of transsexuals who had underwent sex reassignment surgery, came to pretty much the same conclusions, that post-op transsexuals are more than 20 times likely to commit suicide than the general population. The Swedish study, conducted over 30 years from 1973 to 2003, and consisted of all 324 sex reassigned persons, found that persons with transsexualism after sex reassignment have considerably higher risks for mortality, suicidal behavior, and psychiatric morbidity than the general population. Our findings suggest that sex reassignment, although alleviating gender dysphoria, may not suffice as treatment for transsexualism and should inspire improved psychiatric and somatic care after sex reassignment for this patient group. Also echoing the research thus stated are pharmacotherapy studies that are 20 years old that used the drug Pimozide on a cross-dressing man with a strong wish to undergo a sex change. The outcome of the study, as far as I know, has never been mentioned in the mainstream media, or at least I've never heard about it between the cacophony of how Caitlyn Jenner is so brave and so beautiful. But there was an excellent response to Pimozide 2 milligrams daily with a cessation of both cross-dressing and the wish for sex reassignment. When after 1 year the dose was reduced to 1 milligram daily, there was a rapid return of the cross-dressing and the wish for sex reassignment. An increase in the dose again led to a remission, which has been maintained since then. And the conclusion was that pharmacotherapy with Pimozide should be considered in cases of doubtful gender dysphoria. But in all reality, this is one of those cases where you don't really need to appeal to scientific authority, as it's clear even enough to a layman to come to these conclusions. The real controversy, as I see it, lies with people that try to proselytize to the masses on the virtue, dignity, and right for individuals to choose the life of a transgender. This issue has become such that even transgendered people will now be allowed to compete in the 2016 Olympics without surgery, meaning that women with male genitalia will be allowed to compete against women with their original plumbing.
So now women who want to compete in the Olympics will have to compete with and shower with their masculine competitors. So take this example. You have a 350-pound weightlifter named Yuri Kolesnikov from Russia, and he wants to compete in the women's shot put event. Well, of course he can. He'd be welcome. And he would likely win. So you get a gold medal for Yuri, and all the true women with proper genitalia will lose. Now, of course, they'll get to shower with Yuri, whether they want to or not. Does this seem fair to you? So we have all this fuss, supposedly to please a transgender community or transgender victims of cultural Marxism, but these people just want to be left alone and not put under the spotlight or under the microscope. And likely, many would like to be cured. And by the way, I'll bet you that most transgendered people have never heard of the drug Pimozide. So here's my opinion. Women suffer most from this buffoonery, but we all pay the price when the moral relativity is brought forth as society's measure of right and wrong. And now, reality relativity is being taught in schools. It's a full-blown war on the truth, and with the younger generation, it looks like reality is losing. This is the Satanist agenda to destroy the natural human creation by God. He and his minions want to desecrate everything that stands for right and wrong, and now destroy the ability to think by waging war on reality. The casualties are all of us. In this situation, I suggest you look below the veneer of acceptance and actually look into the hearts of these kids who suffer this disorientation of the most profound case. Here's a young person who quite eloquently characterizes a situation that perhaps 3 in 1,000 face. likely because of environmental toxins that are becoming more and more prevalent in the environment. This short clip gives you some insight, but I suggest you watch the entire video. It's referenced below and in the show notes.
The idea that was sold to me by the medical community that I would find congruence as the hormones aligned my brain with my body. I thought that as soon as I went on testosterone, my body was going to do this song and dance. Yes, that is the stuff. That is the stuff that we've been missing all these years. All these years. Where did you find that? Where did you find that? Now that we have that, we're complete. We're good. We're set for life. We're good. But that didn't happen. Outwardly, there was congruence. I passed as male 100% of the time. I got the pronoun that I wanted. Nobody gave me shit anymore. That part of my life had improved immensely. Immensely. But in here, there was no aligning of planets. There was only sacrifice. Over time, I watched the few people close to me who had not disowned me. I watched them come to look at me and not recognize me. It got to the point where one day I looked in the mirror and I ran my hand across my thickening jawline and across my stubble that I had waited for so long for. So long for that stubble. And I looked in the mirror and I didn't know who I was. And I felt like a traitor. I missed myself. And I realized this is not harmony. This is just one more day of hiding. I can hide. I can hide my birth. I can hide my socialization. I can hide my feminine face. Everything behind this jawline, behind this facial hair. And that's all that I had ever wanted. That's all I had ever wanted was to pass as male, not as female, not as transgender, just as male. And passing ended up denying my right to a history. And I have a very rich history and a very good story because of who I am. And if people look straight through me and see just a he, just a sir, then that history has been erased. I had silenced myself for a pronoun. It is very tempting to believe that I am fully male, that I am testosterone, that I am muscle mass, that I am stubble, because this has always told me that I am. But you know what? I am inside of a female vessel. And no matter how I shape it, no matter how I inject it, no matter how I cut it, that's not going to change. I cannot undo birth. I cannot undo socialization. I cannot shave off a large part of myself and throw it away and pretend that it never existed. The hard truth for me, the very, very hard truth that I had to realize, is that I will never be cisgender. I will never have a cisgendered experience. I will never have complete alignment between my body and my brain. And you know what? That doesn't make me a half-functioning individual.
No, it's not fun and it's not normal. It sounds like it can be prevented by a pharmaceutical, or it can be solved by what the medical profession calls sexual reassignment surgery. There's no sex change. That's not reality. You can become a transgender person playing the role of the sex you choose That's as close as you can get. But remember, we all masquerade to some degree, and the Satanists who are pushing the bathroom agenda masquerade all the time. They're lifetime actors and have no opinions or will of their own. They're puppets. They have sold this part of their humanity for fame and fortune. If you don't know this, you need to get back and do more research. These damn souls are engaged in the most dangerous profession because they step out of line or needed to be a ritual sacrifice. They are summarily eliminated. So if you're awakening and you know that they're fakes, phonies, and are not out for the best interests of us, only the best interests of the Satanists running this plane, and they're not out for the best interests of the transgenders. They play the role of the rich, the famous and powerful, but they're neither. They're puppets. Don't let them use their status to exploit the suffering of others. So I guess in closing, I just want to mention, don't be a puppet. Don't be pushed around by this transgender agenda. If you have sexual ambiguity, investigate it. Investigate what you need to do. Investigate your feelings. Share it with other members of the communities. Watch someone go through a transition before you attempt to transition yourself. And the first thing I would do is try this Pemazide, because this might work for you and it might clear up your confusion in the beginning. If you decide to do the transgender thing, realize that you're going to be a transgendered male or a transgendered female. There is no real sex change. It doesn't occur. You're going to be masquerading, which is probably how you feel like now. I don't want you to be swept up in the satanic agenda. You're not part of that. And just realize that these new rules are not for the benefit of the transgender community. They just throw the transgender community in the spotlight more. Let's all stop and recognize the agenda that Satan has on this plane. And it's to destroy everything that God created and twist it and turn it any way they can. These transgender people need our help and understanding. So, going forward, thank you for watching, and God bless you.